Does the new Canon R5 Mark II live up to the hype, or is the camera a bust?
So the Canon R5 Mark II has been out just about a month now. Actually, now it has been a full month since the camera's been out. And in this video, I want to give you my 1 month review. I have over 10,000 photos with it. And I just want to say the truth about the camera and everything. And we'll be comparing a little bit to the R5. Let's get out some of the better physical comparisons right away, starting with the viewfinder on the R5 Mark II. It is way bigger and it also is fog free. I've been shooting in some heavy rain a couple times and it didn't fog up, where this Canon R5 viewfinder does fog up quite a bit and it can get pretty frustrating. The R5 Mark II now has a full-size HDMI port, which is huge. Those micro or mini HDMI ports that the R5 had was not very good. They were flimsy and they end up breaking the wire or getting stuck inside of the camera. The R5 Mark II is built to have better heat dissipation so it doesn't overheat. I live in Alaska and I've never had that problem. The hottest I've ever really been in is like 80 degrees with the R5, so I'm not too concerned living here, but if I ever go to a hotter place, yeah, I might have some issues, and I can't really do any testing on that for you. And also the Canon R5 Mark II now has a dedicated video switch, which is great, but I'm gonna get more on that later because I wish they swapped the on and off button with the dedicated video switch, but we talk about that later in the video. And also, one thing I do like, I really like the joystick now on the R5 Mark II. Feels a little better, more responsive, and I just like the way it feels on my thumb. This is convex, where the R5 was concave. All right, well, I'm back here in my office and I wanted to dive into the video mode first because that is the whole reason I bought the Canon R5. C-Log 2 is 100% worth it for me. It was definitely worth the upgrade just for C-Log 2 alone. You have so much dynamic range and highlight and shadow recovery in the R5 II with C-Log 2. For me, that was just the little bit I needed to step up and get the R5 Mark II. And I'm pleasantly surprised that in video mode with C-Log 2, I recorded the Northern Lights with the R5 Mark II, a live video with C-Log 2, 25,000 ISO, and I was pleasantly surprised to see how good it looked. It's not perfect, it's not going to be Sony a7S III or FX3 quality, but it's way better than the Canon R5. The Canon R5 was very, very disappointing, and so was the R6 as well, with extreme high ISOs, anything higher than 25,000 ISO. In fact, I believe I made a video comparing the Canon R5 and R6 to my friend's Nikon Z6 II. We had the same lens, same exact settings, and his looked miles ahead. But I think the R5 II has finally caught up with low light video performance. When Canon said, oh, the R5 Mark II now has 8K 60, I'm like, I'm probably not going to use that much. I might for the first few weeks or whatever. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the 8K 60. The file sizes aren't too big. They edit great on the MacBook Pro M2 Max. They edit great on the MacBook Pro M2 Max, and I'm really excited about 8K. It's been my second favorite video mode. 4K 120 will always be my favorite. 8K 60 is great, and so is the 2K 240 FPS. I used that for some puffins in flight, and that was really fun to experiment with as well. Canon added the tally light in front of the camera, so when I'm vlogging or if I just have the camera in front of me, I know I'm recording. There's been a few times I talked to the camera for a few minutes and I said I wasn't recording. So now the tally light will definitely help me fix that issue. I know that I can't be the only one that does that. And then finally, one of my favorite video features is something I actually hated at first, but now I've come to like it, and that is the fact that they added a new menu system and everything is more organized with videos. I really like the menu layout. I like how it's organized on my SD card when I put it on the computer. 8K RAW is in its own file. The 4K 120 is in its own file, and the photos are in their own folders. That's what I'm trying to say, not file, folders. And I'm really pleasantly surprised on how seamless everything is. Definitely makes organization just a little bit easier for me, and that's my biggest struggle when it comes to videos and photos. My organization is very subpar. Canon also added the false color, but I haven't messed with it that much because it's just a pain to set up, because you got to disable the preview for having the view assist, and you have to disable that, and then you got to disable manual focus peaking. Very frustrating. I haven't messed with the false color that much, but it is in the R5 too, so that will definitely help a lot of videographers out there. Okay, so moving on to everything I like about what's new in the photo side of things. Honestly, I thought it was really nothing special until I discovered how much I love pre-capture. Pre-capture has gotten me a few photos already, and I haven't even used it that much, and now I have it on all the time. And it's just something that helps me get, especially with birds or even wildlife. Sometimes wildlife does something and you just missed it, and it saved me a few times. So pre-capture is something that I've really fallen in love with. I shoot in electronic mode, 30 frames per second, and I thought to myself, man, my living room is gonna be absolutely demolished with photos, but it's actually not too bad. I just delete what I don't like, and makes the culling process a little easier because I finally am doing the deleting part of things. I never really delete much, but if there's nothing there, I finally am figuring out, hey, just delete it, and your sanity will be saved later down the road. Speaking of 30 frames per second, it's nice. I thought, I'm not going to use it that much. I love it for birds. It's great for birders, but it's also just great for wildlife. You just never know what you're going to get, and just having those extra few shots is something that I highly recommend. And something else I highly recommend is if you're going to use the pre-capture and 8K, definitely want to check out these 2 terabyte cards by Angelbird. They haven't let me down yet. They're only the 1785 megabyte per second one, but they were on sale. And I believe I also got, if I can find it right here, a Lexar one. I got this at Storz Photo, 2 terabytes. This one's 1900 megabytes a second, and it's only like 380 bucks, which sounds like a lot, but 2 terabytes and 1 card is actually pretty nice. And the other thing that's great with electronic shutter in the R5 II is you finally now get the full dynamic range in the electronic shutter. On the Canon R5, in mechanical shutter, you got 14 bits of dynamic range, where in electronic you only got 12. This, you get the full dynamic range in mechanical and electronic. Okay, moving on to the autofocus. I thought for sure, and this is why you wait a month to make reviews, because I thought for sure it was pretty much identical with some visual changes. I thought, man, it's just going to be the same autofocus when it comes to small birds, until just 2 days ago, I was out photographing these kingfishers, and for some reason with the R5, I struggled so much with these belted kingfishers. I could never get anything going. I could never get anything in focus. And I don't know if they were just being nice to me or what. This thing was picking them up great. I was really surprised with the eye tracking and the animal tracking with those small birds, flying fast in tight spaces. So it was one of those things where I got it finally. So I'm gonna say the autofocus is way better on the Canon R5 Mark II. All right, let's move on to probably what everyone comes to a review for, and that is the image review. When it comes to the image review, this is gonna be based on my 1 month experience so far. I don't know if Lightroom still needs to update a few things, so if there's a Lightroom side of things, I'm not sure. But photo-wise, when it comes to just the image quality itself, I feel like it is nearly identical to the Canon R5. Now, you get better autofocus to get better photos, yes. But let's say you both have photos that are both shot, they're both in focus and everything. When you're looking at pictures side by side with the same settings, they're gonna look nearly identical. I feel like the noise patterns are still the same. In low light, if you raise the shadows or anything, you're gonna get this weird cross pattern with the noise, and that's something the R5 has and the R5 II has it as well. However, to avoid that, don't raise your shadows and make sure you get a well exposed shot, especially when it comes to astrophotography and extreme low light situations with wildlife. Where the Canon R5 Mark II exceeds is the sensor readout speed. It is almost on par with the Canon R3. Now, if you're confused what sensor readout speed is, it's basically if you are photographing a extremely fast movement, like a baseball player swinging or a bird that's flying, and you are like whipping the camera like that, are your lines going to be straight? Is the baseball bat going to be straight? With the R5 Mark II, yes, it's going to be much better than the R5. So if you're a sports shooter or an event shooter or something where you need your lines to be straight and the balls to be straight and the bats to be straight, the R5 II is 100% better than the R5. And it's fairly similar to the R3. But to be honest, with low light and image quality and high ISO performance and just looking at your stuff on the computer, or if you print it out on a billboard or 60 by 60 on a wall or whatever it is on a phone screen, most people aren't going to notice. And Jared Polin definitely said this best. In the real world, your clients, your Instagram followers, your YouTube followers, or whoever, no one's gonna say, wow, did you take that with the R5 when you have the R5 Mark II? Because I could tell the quality is much different. I could tell the noise performs way different. Guys, not many people are gonna notice it besides you and those people that pixel peep for whatever reason. And if you do want to pixel peep, yeah, the R3 is going to be the best. The R5 II is going to be the second best, and the R5 is going to be the worst out of the three cameras, and I assume the R1 is going to be the new best when that comes out. But in real world situations, in real life, your clients or whoever, nobody's gonna care what camera you shot with. It's all about, can you get the shot? And most likely it's gonna be what lens you're using that gets you the shot that people are wowed by, and your composition. The camera body isn't gonna make or break you. I can understand if you're doing some video work and you're using the Canon R5 II at 40,000 ISO for some video, and then your best friend's got the Sony a7S III with 200,000 ISO. Well, a7S III is going to be better, and people are going to notice that, but that's about it. All right, well, that's going to cover the image review section. I'm going to leave a few photos in the description. Well, the description will be down here. I'm going to leave some photos in there with a Google Drive link. You can look at the photos, edit them however you want. Just don't post them as your own, obviously. And I'm not going to give you my best photos because I don't want them stolen, but I'll give you some photo examples. We've got some low light astrophotography, moon photography, some bears, some puffins, and throw a couple of those kingfisher photos in there as well. Alright, so anytime a new camera comes out, whether it's a big, huge Canon R5 like this or a small action camera, there's always going to be those gimmicks and gripes that I don't like about it. So let me just go over some features that pretty much are useless on the Canon R5 Mark II. I'll never use them. I don't see a need for them. But there's just a few things that I don't even know why they're in there. It's just wasting up space in the menu system. And the first thing is going to be the image upscaling. It only works on JPEGs, and I just don't see it working that great. I don't see a use for it at all. Maybe for sports shooters that need to get something out right away, but the camera quality is so good. I don't see a need for the AI upscale, or I don't know if it's AI, but I don't see a need for the image upscaling in the Canon R5 Mark II. Okay, so another feature that I thought was actually going to be cool, but it's useless on this camera, is the dual shooting. So you have movie and photo still shooting at the same time, but the issue is the Canon R5 II only lets you do that in 1080p. So for me, why is anyone shooting 1080p in 2024? I don't know. If you need the space, maybe, sure. I thought it would be a cool feature, especially shooting wildlife, getting some video and having a couple stills to choose from. And those stills in the 1080p video are also only JPEGs. Wouldn't mind it if they were JPEGs, if you could shoot any codec and still do the dual movie and photo stills, but you're getting JPEGs and with 1080p video, it's pretty much useless. You're better off shooting 8K and taking a still out of there. Okay, people might come at my throat for this one, but the R5 Mark II has 2 card slots. It's got the Type B, the CF Express Type B, and it's got this, the useless SD card slot. The 45 megapixel 8K 60 camera that is capable of so much, 30 frames per second, has a SD card slot for your second slot. It's useless. I don't even want to shoot redundant. I don't know if it's going to slow me down shooting redundant. I don't know what photos are going to be on there if I'm getting 30 frames per second with a CF Express Type B and I'm getting an SD card, whatever. So I put an SD card in there for absolute emergencies. I've only had to use the SD card once with the R5 II in the 5 years or so that I had it. When the R1 comes out, that's going to have 2 CF Express Type B card slots, which is cool, but that's getting 30 frames per second and it's 24 megapixels. This is 8K 60, 45 megapixels, and it's got the 30 frames per second. What are we using the second card slot for? Like, I thought for sure they were gonna update that. Over the summer, I rented some cameras like the Canon R6 Mark II, the Canon R7, and the Canon R3. And I just was so disappointed in the R6 II and the R7 because it had no buffer. The SD card slot in 2024 is rendered useless for wildlife photographers and videographers, and that's my take on the SD card slot. And like I said earlier, I was really happy about Canon getting a dedicated video switch, but why did we put that on the left side when all of the functions on the camera are on the right side? As a wildlife photographer that's using a long lens all the time, being able to switch from photo to video mode with just pressing the manual function button would have been a way better experience than using this dedicated video switch with my left hand. I have to always take my hand off the lens. I'm going to lose my composition, I'm going to lose my framing, I'm going to lose my focus by turning on the video mode. I get it, it's great to have, but I actually like the workflow of the R5 better, having the manual function button, being able to switch from video. And also both cameras can shoot video from the photo mode with custom settings. Just by pressing the record button, you'll get custom 3 video settings with the record button in photo mode. And I love that, but I do like having everything on the right side. Alright, so what are my final thoughts 1 month into the Canon R5 Mark II? Like I just said, I'm a little bummed about the SD card slot. I'm a little bummed about the location of the dedicated video switch, but I love this camera. It is absolutely amazing, and I've gotten some really good photos. The pre-capture 8K 60 and the 240 frames per second were definitely great reasons for me to upgrade. The #1 overall reason for me to upgrade was the C-Log 2, and that hasn't let me down. If you're a videographer, it is going to be worth it 100,000%. I think the Canon R5 Mark II is the best camera for hybrid shooters. That means photographers and videographers in 2024. And moving forward, I think it's still going to be the king for a very long time. Canon hits the nail on the head for having the perfect mix for photographers and videographers. I think the R5 Mark II is a perfect upgrade for anyone coming from the R5 that does anything professionally, that wants the best image quality for their clients. If you're making money, it's going to pay itself off eventually. This camera is also the best upgrade you can get if you're still a DSLR shooter, finally looking for a reason to upgrade to mirrorless. This R5 Mark II is going to change your life forever. The camera I'm recording with right now, the R5, that camera changed my life forever, going from DSLR to the Canon R5. This thing will totally blow your mind, especially the way animal focus works these days if you're a wildlife photographer, or if you're a videographer, or if you're just any photographer. Even using a viewfinder, an electronic viewfinder, is absolutely a game changer. I highly recommend upgrading if you are looking for a mirrorless camera in 2024. I don't think the camera is worth upgrading if you are just an amateur photographer If you're only shooting on Saturday afternoons or something like that, there's nothing wrong with that. For sure, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But the only thing that's gonna make you a better photographer is having a better lens and getting out more and more and more. If you already have the Canon R5 Mark II or plan on purchasing it, check out this video right here. I give 5 firmware ideas for Canon to update on the next firmware or in a future firmware update that can make the ease of access and just the camera feel and work a little bit better for most people and their workflows. With that, that's all I have. I hope you liked the video. Subscribe to the channel for more R5 content, more Alaska and wildlife content. And with that, that's all I have in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.